we? Great. Hi, everybody. Welcome to San Francisco's Litquake Literary Festival. This is a closing night of our Lit Crawl. My name is Jack Bulwer from Litquake, and we're very happy to present tonight. Right now, SF Bay presents Stand Up and Be Counted. Tonight is the closing night of our festival, and we're in the midst of a virtual Lit Crawl, which has been running since 10:30 a.m. this morning Pacific time. We're featuring 7 cities around the world, 25 events in 12 hours. So we're maybe 2/3 of the way through right now. This is a nonprofit festival here in San Francisco, and we're pretty much 100% free, especially with the COVID. We just had to make it free. So we could not exist without the generosity of our individual donors, people like yourselves. Thank you so much for donating if you have. If you believe in keeping literature a key component of San Francisco's cultural landscape, we would be honored if you could drop us a few dollars in support. Every bit helps. We accept donations at Venmo at Litquake, on PayPal at info@litquake.org, or you can go to our website directly at litquake.org. After the event, you'll be asked to fill out a short survey that'll pop right up on your screen. If you have a minute or two, please fill it out. We'd love to hear from you what you're interested in, and also we can use this information to help raise money to do the next Lit Crawl. So let's get started with our event. Well, here is your host for the next 30 minutes. Please welcome Shizue Siegel.
Hi, I'm Shizue Siegel of Right Now SF Bay, and this evening is Stand Up and Be Counted. I'd like to thank Lit Crawl for inviting us. I really missed the live event, but this virtual festival has been amazing. You guys have done a great job. So people of color comprise 60% of the Bay Area's population, but a lot of people don't seem to be aware of that, because I think a lot of people think that we're just the furniture, you know, the bus boys, the bus drivers, the nurses, you know, and I think COVID has made us really realize how essential we are to not only the Bay Area, but life in the United States. And I've always thought of Right Now as being an organization that encourages ordinary people of color to write in an authentic way about their lives. I mean, some of our writers are brilliant literary stylists as well, but they come from a real place of authenticity, and that's what I really appreciate about them. So tonight we are gathered on unceded Ramaytush Ohlone land, and we honor the land, the ancestors, the Black, Brown, and Indigenous, and all those who struggle to breathe free. In the past 5 years, Right Now has served over 250 Bay Area writers and artists of color through free or low-cost writing workshops, events, and anthologies. You can find out more about us at www.rightnowsf.com. That's WRITE, rightnow.com. Many of us, including the folks that are reading tonight, are involved in essential work that keeps our communities going. Tonight, we'll hear from Tammy Nachan, Kevin Madrigal, Sri Ram Shaman Sunder, and Lamont Wilson. In addition to their brilliant and sensitive writing, they work for change in education, food justice, medicine, and advocacy for the disabled. So I'll start us off with a couple of short poems honoring the change of the seasons. Because in spite of the headline, the furor of the headlines, it's like, this is not the first time that humankind has endured disaster. And somehow we manage to continue on, you know. So this first one is called Jumping Off the Chase Wagon. It began as a journey of surprise and grace, became a tail-chasing pursuit that has to end now. Take a moment to bask in liquid sun and let it seep down through layers of dank compression and leaf litter trampled in haste, leaching acids of regret for fallen summer grasses and the long gone yodels of spring. Here, beneath the surface, among earwigs and earthworms, lies the birthplace of flowers. Late afternoon sky. The rain has stopped at last. Coral light suffuses the sky like a healing as the earth refills her lungs. A lone car rips wet asphalt like tearing silk. And after a sodden afternoon, a wedge of hope rims the western sky. Light glints on shards of glass and shattered trees, and a single perfect sphere trembles from a leaf tip. At the still point in the center, I see all with unblinking eye. I hold all in compassionate embrace and gather the wisdom to act in full knowledge that time is fleeting and human endeavor flawed. Ego shadows the best intentions. Even the kindest deeds lead to unforeseen harm. But inaction is death, though with every step we take, we are destroying something and birthing something else in this kindly, killing universe. Okay, so Tammy Nachan.
Hi everybody. My name is Tammy Nachan. I'm really honored to be part of this gathering, and thank you, Shizue, for inviting me. So I teach at City College of San Francisco. I teach English composition and poetry sometimes. I'm going to read a poem that I wrote a few months ago called "To Breathe." Thank you to the wind for bringing us fresh air and taking our brother on his journey. Michelle and Ashley Monterosa at the remembrance protest for Sean Monterosa, murdered by a Vallejo police officer as he was demonstrating for Black Lives, June 5th, 2020. Wind, fresh air, to breathe, to take oxygen into lungs so it can travel through veins, like our ancestor, the fish, who ambled onto land. Air in lungs, an animal inheritance. Where does my body begin? Where does it end? Molecules enter and leave me dispersing into air. I breathe you, you breathe me. We stand 6 feet apart, faces covered, sanitized surfaces. Stay home. All to protect this right to breathe. Then what of George Floyd? He survives his birth, Black boyhood, Black adolescence, young Black manhood. He even survives the virus and keeps breathing, keeps breathing. If we hold our breath long enough, we will go unconscious and our bodies will begin to breathe again. To calm the chaos inside, spiritual guides tell us, focus on the breath, this miracle of air entering and leaving our lungs. Watch it, hear it, feel it. Offer gratitude to this air, this friend that accompanies us in and out of our bodies on this terrestrial journey. George Floyd survives the virus. We stay home so he can recover. And yet, recovered lungs cannot help him when a murderer in police uniform crushes his throat. Son of a mother who pushed him out and wept at his first crying breath, he cries for her after his last breath is spent. Tell us, whose breath are we protecting now? How will we heal ourselves from this deadlier virus that takes away the air in our lungs? Thank you. This second poem is fairly new. I am living with my husband and son, who I love so much, but this is about, quarantining. So, in our quarantine of 3, I long for us among others. A laugh here, a song there, a fight somewhere. Each of us away for the day, returning with a story. She said, he said, they said, we said. Huddled together, our home is warm, kind, and gentle. If only we could rest here. If only beloved ones could also enjoy such rest. A laugh here, a song there, a fight somewhere. If only we could all find shelter in place from the hunger, from the terror, myself among others, then coming back. In this quarantine of 3, I long for us. So this one is new. It looks like this. So I have the great pleasure of teaching a class through City College Extension, CCSF Extension. I have a new one starting a week from next Thursday. So it's called Speaking the Unspeakable. And so I'm inviting anyone out there listening to Google CCSF Extension, and you can look for me, you can look for poetry, Speaking the Unspeakable, and you'll find me. And I have to give a shout out to my current cohort who I'm writing with every Thursday, because this comes out of conversation with them and out of conversation with Joy Harjo's poem, This Morning I Pray for My Enemies. It's called Enemies. I see you, white man, in your pickup truck with Confederate flag, flashing a toothless grin. I see you see me, brown, college educated, home owning, and oh yes, Muslim. I see you, man who has learned that boys don't cry, who says man up, shouting the little boy out of his own sons. Did you ever hold your babies? Rock them when they cried? In 1985, Sting sang, and I heard him, what might save us, me and you, is that the Russians love their children too. Can you see me loving my brown son, wearing a hoodie, looking like Trayvon? Can I see you loving your son, carrying a tiki torch or carrying a gun? Thank you.
Thank you, Tamina. Next up is Kevin Madrigal.
Hey y'all, I'm just trying to make sure my camera's focused. It's like, it'll focus on its own. Shizue, thank you for having me. Tamina, thank you for sharing those pieces. They're very powerful. I think those types of stories need to continue to be shared, especially because we're still in a pandemic and still amidst such racial tension and issues in the country. I have a few poems that I'm going to share today, and I'll just get into them. Without papers. My parents packed lightly, left behind dense familial obligations, and took light hopes. Exchanged every peso to their name and came to America. Whether referring to wealth or status, they came without papers. So I pick up the pen and create a world where the page has no value, unless its words move mountains carefully without destruction left in their wake. I write on sand, stitched canvas, and aluminum cans. I write on rocks, pill bottles, and worn-out socks. I write on skin, loquat leaves, and bushes with immaculate trim. I write permanence when scars are transferred from sin. I write on 2x4 wood planks that stretch from here to the horizon. I write on memories of migrant sweat and nightmares of La Migra's revenge. I write on anything and everything but papers. Whew. All right, I'm gonna share, thanks for the snaps, virtual snaps. I'm gonna share 2 short poems that I wrote that were really like just early in the pandemic. Not all heroes wear capes, but they do wear masks. At least Rosavilla does, for her protection and for yours. She's 73, and not a goddamn pandemic is gonna stop her from distributing food to her community in need. She makes sure each car that pulls up to the emergency food relief pantry is loaded before they're on their way. A beaming smile on her face, her mouth covered, but I can see it in her grin-wrinkled eyes. At 73, she's a hero. Not a goddamn pandemic is gonna stop her. This next piece is, thank you. This next piece is 68 homeless individuals tested positive for the virus at a shelter in downtown San Francisco. They were moved from beds placed 2 feet apart from each other to isolation in hotel rooms around the city. And only in America will you be treated better as a virus than as a human. All right, I have one last piece to share with y'all. This piece is dedicated to my tia Leti, my tia Jose, and to all the people that have been lost, that we've not been able to properly mourn. It's October and I want to get drunk with my primo in person, to get empulqueado and begin the late night mission to find Señora Tacos de la Calle. I want us to reminisce on the time pre-pandemic, us sleeping in adjacent rooms like brothers, going for jogs at the park and runs for late night churros and elote. All evenings enjoyed either an adventurous meal at a place I found on Instagram or game night with friends and plotting the next mezcal night out. I want us to remember the mundane. His dad, my tío, at the head of the dinner table. Pásame el chile, he'll say, and one of us will gladly hand it over, sipping on agua de Jamaica as he downs a Diet Coke. My tía preparing his plate, taking it out to him for his lunch break, watching over the papeleria where high school students buy last-minute supplies. I never earned my nephew Juanpi's trust. Sandra would bring him by and he'd look at me in suspicion. The most I'd get was a chocala fist bump before he ran off to abuelito, my tío. Luis told me that Juanpi asked when his abuelito is coming back, and I teared up. How many years will it take for him to learn, to understand that he isn't? And I want us all to go back in time, pre-pandemic, so we can properly say goodbye to my tío, but we can't. So I want to get drunk with my primo in person and pretend like we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I can't tell you how honored I am every time I hear you all. Anyway, next up is Dr. Sri Ram Shaman Sunder.
Thank you. And that was awesome, Kevin. Thanks so much. And thanks for inviting me. Sorry for the scrubs. I am actually on a night shift at the hospital, so apologies for that. I have 2 poems, and in doctor form, they are COVID poems. So the first one is one that I wrote early in the pandemic when I started to see my first patients in San Francisco. And then the second one is about the work that many of us have done in Navajo Nation with indigenous communities. And I was in Navajo Nation, and we continue to work in Navajo Nation, which is in Arizona and New Mexico. And I was there taking care of COVID patients for 5 weeks. So this first poem is called Going into the Hospital, COVID-19. When I walk out the doors these days for a shift in the hospital, 2 small people cry at the door. My daughter and son, 4 and 1.5. Tears fall, big drops against their full brown cheeks. My first inclination is to dismiss their dramatics. I will be back soon. They are on the other side of the door, and I am on the other. And they would much rather be on the same side of the door, rumpling through the leaves on the Oakland sidewalk, taking a long walk around the neighborhood to visit a Japanese oak or a fennel bush, or a neighbor who might unexpectedly peek out their window. It is their immediate acknowledgement that they would rather be with their father wherever he may be going and whatever that might bring. When I head into the hospital, I'm aware that any missteps of face to mouth or by poor luck or chance could pull me away from seeing my two lovelies grow up. I can picture myself as one of my patients, trying to catch my breath like trying to catch a bus that's too far ahead, breathing like I sprinted a mile and then another mile. My breath won't slow, the fear that creeps in. And isn't this how it's always been? Life as fragile as a leaf hanging on a tall tree, about to tumble to earth in autumn. And to be apart may mean to be apart longer than anyone may have predicted. And to be apart now may cost us our lives. What I'm learning from my two little ones, give in to the jubilant joy of being with the ones we love and mourn when they are not near. What could be more honest or more important, my loves? All right, so that was the first poem. The second poem is I just wrote, and it's from our work in Navajo Nation. So it's called "To Walk in Beauty Once Again." Fragility sticks to everything alive like quiet wetness of morning dew in this global pandemic. As a doctor, I see this fragility threatening to swallow so much of what we love, like a large red blanket covering a small bed, and I can't unsee it. In the spring, I spent 5 weeks in Navajo Nation, an indigenous community in the southwest of the United States, taking care of COVID patients. COVID as common as a desert cactus in Arizona, blooming like dandelions in an open field. That evening, like every other evening, I stood outside a patient room, an emergency room converted into several pods of plastic, cocoons that separate one patient from the next and them from us, all in the hopes of keeping the virus at bay. Blue plastic reflects emergency room light, light like a parking lot at night or a mall, light perpetual and yellow glow fluorescence. I methodically wear my PPE, Velcro gown clasp, secure the back, face shield, N95 on, cloth mask over, double glove, blue glove pulled over brown skin, no brown skin between gloves and gown, double check. Zip up, tent, step in, zip closed behind me. He lies left side down, a young Navajo man, black hair braided down long past his lower back, right down the middle of his back, like an outer beautiful spine, stark against bleached white sheets. Each thick hair knot, dense and strong as rope, like ancestors clasping hands one over the other, each knot a closed knuckle, gathering like a prayer at the base of his skull. He has an oxygen mask on. I watch his eyes closely for signs of fear, and I watch his hands for signs of trembling or what they might reveal about a life before and up to this moment. Guilt hangs in the room like fog. Where did I get COVID and why and who in my family did I expose? He breathes fast. We make small and short talk, a few words between catching his breath. He says real soft between quick breaths, I don't want to die. I say, we will get through this. And then again louder, the first time for him, the second time for me, we will get through this. I leave the hospital at midnight. The next morning, a short coffee run in my rental car. My colleague calls to say that overnight, my patient emptied his lungs like a gas tank and puttered into the early morning in fumes, exhaustion. He was just intubated. He will be flown to Albuquerque or Phoenix, off indigenous land. My wife calls at that moment, that very moment, FaceTime with my 5-year-old daughter behind her shoulder. I submit to the fact that I may never see my patient again. I submit to the fact that he may not survive. I submit to tears that slip down my cheek, and I watch my own hands as they wipe them away. Everything submits to something, I tell myself. The bears rummage through rotted wood and suck up and slurp up ants. The ants submit to the bear submits to winters, trees submit to fire, the rocks submit to water as it etches grooves across gray. The river water submits to the seasons thinning out come late summer, and our bodies to time, and so many black and brown bodies this time. This is the year of submission or surrender or survival. I can't decide which. And when a patient is about to discharge from the COVID unit, a call goes overhead from all over the hospital. Like a bird migration, we descend on the COVID unit from anywhere we might find ourselves in the hospital. All of the health providers gather in a line on either side of the hallway, like a sports team, waiting to high-five their star player coming out of the tunnel onto the field. In this moment, a COVID survivor gets wheeled out the big doors into the sunlight, like exiting a dark tunnel, and into their family's arms. In those sweet moments, I think this is the year of resilience. This is the year of I won't let you go. My Navajo colleague tells me with confidence, the Navajo people will walk in beauty once again. And then she repeats it, we will walk in beauty once again. The first time for me, the second time I think she says it to convince herself. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last reader is Andre Lamont Wilson.
Thank you, Shezue, for inviting me, and thank you all the wonderful readers tonight, and thank you, Litquake, for finding a new way to put on this event. My essay is titled Phantom Man. On St. Patrick's Day, I plan to wear my shirt, Kiss Me, I'm 6.25% Irish. But the executive director closed our Oakland Day program for adults with disabilities on March 16th, 2020, because of the pandemic. Now, my shirt remained unworn in my closet while I remained at home, navigating the unfamiliar world thrust upon me and billions. I had worked as a backup personal care attendant for 25 years. I changed the diapers and clothes of men who couldn't change them themselves. In the absence of lifting men from their wheelchair to the toilet and back 5 days a week, my body experienced shock. I had adapted my body to support another man's body to such an extent that I felt lost without him, like the hindquarters of a centaur separated from its man half. I wobbled on two hooves. A severed horse torso searched for its man half but couldn't find him. Memories of his weight lingered in my flanks. He existed only as a phantom limb, a phantom man. If man and horse were united again, the virus could kill us. I had engaged in work I couldn't do remotely. Social distancing and 6 feet were incompatible with a job that required close physical contact with the bodies of others. I watched with trepidation as first dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of attendants and nurses in nursing homes, group homes, and hospitals contracted the virus and died. I wondered if I would receive personal protective equipment when I returned to work, or if I would be forced to wear a trash bag. I returned to work on April Fool's Day. The building was empty of the sounds of wheelchairs, walkers, and their occupants. A skeleton crew of masked staff either taught Zoom classes or disinfected surfaces. The executive director asked if I wanted to teach storytelling. I used to perform stories before participants behind the building after lunch. But in the year before the pandemic, attendants needed my help in the restroom after every lunch. All storytelling ceased. I told my director I would think about it over the weekend. On Monday, I told her yes. During the shutdown, I had attended several literary events and workshops on Zoom, so I was familiar with the virtual meeting technology. However, I was so accustomed to working behind the scene, wiping behinds, that I felt odd working in front of a camera. I used to change men. Now the pandemic changed me. My first Zoom storytelling classes consisted of videos of my storytelling performances and comedians with disabilities, followed by class discussion. However, my support staff, attendants who had only worked as attendants, so botched the sharing of videos that I took over as host and began to tell stories and decrease the use of videos. "Why are you still wearing that?" a participant asked from his box on the screen. His eyes motioned to the mask and shield on my face. I said, "I wear them not because of you, but because of the support staff around me." For the next class, I placed a portable dry erase board behind me, not only to block views of the classroom, but to prevent staff from walking up and breathing near me, even if they were wearing masks. Now, I removed my ghost-based bedsheet, shield, and mask, and unleashed the full arsenal of facial expressions and gestures during storytelling. The participants laughed from their screen boxes like the Brady Bunch in the tic-tac-toe boxes at the beginning of their 70s show. After 6 weeks, I received a report. My storytelling class had the highest average attendance of any class we offered on Wednesday. I filled my office with storytelling books and ordered another on virtual storytelling. I intend to revamp my lesson plan to make my class more interactive. I'm not in a rush to reattach to my man half as his essential servant after the pandemic. I have a lot of stories to tell. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just feel so honored by all of you and your powerful, powerful work. And, you know, for every one of you, there are so many invisible people out there who still feel like their stories and their perspectives don't matter. And I thank you all for what you're doing in order to get those voices out there.
Thank you.
So